Welcome back. You're here because you want to go deeper, right? To really understand things, cut through all the noise, especially when it comes to health and well-being.
Exactly. You want the real information, the stuff that actually matters, without getting bogged down in jargon.
And that's what we do. Today, we're diving into brain health, using the book Genius Foods as our guide. It's a really fascinating journey.
It really is. And what makes it compelling, I think, is the personal story behind it. The author's drive came from his own family's experience with memory problems, seeing the limits of, standard medical advice.
Yeah, that personal motivation really shines through. And it shapes our mission today, which is to pull out the truly actionable stuff for you listening.
We're talking science-backed strategies, diet, lifestyle that can make a real difference to your energy, your sleep, your focus.
Even your mood, things you can actually start doing.
And as we go, you'll see how everything's connected. The brain isn't just floating up there in isolation.
Right, like how your gut health can impact your brain.
Precisely. It's this whole complex web, and understanding those connections is, well, it's key.
Something that really struck me about Genius Foods is its evolutionary angle. It's not about chasing the latest fad.
No, it's about looking at what our brains have thrived on for, like millennia, prioritizing those time-tested ways of eating and living.
It's kind of skeptical about brand new supermarketed solutions, isn't it? Like guilty until proven innocent.
Exactly, which is so helpful today, right? You're just bombarded with health advice, often contradictory stuff.
Totally. So the goal here is clarity. Clarity based on what our biology kind of suggests is best for the long haul.
Okay, so let's start with a core idea from the book, this modern mismatch. What's that all about?
Right, the modern mismatch. So the idea is that our world today, think about it, processed food everywhere, desk jobs, constant stress, weird sleep schedules, social media overload.
It's just fundamentally different from the world our brains actually evolved in. For most of human history, we were active, eating whole foods, living by natural light cycles.
So our brains are basically running Stone Age software in a digital world.
That's a great way to put it. And this mismatch, this misalignment, it has real consequences.
Yeah, the book links it directly to premature aging and cognitive decline.
Absolutely. And there's this striking example in the book about Japanese people who moved to the U.S.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Their health profiles start looking more American than Japanese, right?
Exactly, which strongly suggests it's the environment, the diet, the lifestyle that's driving a lot of these health outcomes. It's not just genetics.
Okay, so given this mismatch, how do we even start thinking about feeding our brains properly? Genius Foods talks a lot about cell membranes. Why are they so important?
Well, think about how your brain actually works, thinking, remembering stuff. It all relies on your brain cells, your neurons, communicating really effectively.
Through signals, right?
Right, chemical and electrical signals. And the health, and crucially the fluidity of the cell membranes surrounding those neurons is essential for that communication to happen smoothly.
Okay, fluidity. So what makes them fluid? What are they made of?
They're built from things called phospholipids, kind of like the walls of the cell, but embedded in those walls are key fats, especially in omega-3 called DHA.
DHA, I've heard of that.
Right, and when you have enough DHA, the membranes become more flexible, more fluid. Imagine like tiny doors or receptors on the cell surface they need to be able to move easily to catch the signals, the neurotransmitters being sent. DHA helps with that.
Makes sense, like well-oiled machinery. But isn't there some kind of competition between omega-6 and omega-3 fats?
Ah, yes. That's a really critical point for you to grasp. Omega-6s and omega-3s compete for the same spots in those cell membranes. Limited real estate.
And the modern diet gives us loads of omega-6s.
Way too many, typically. They're in loads of processed foods, vegetable oils, and they can essentially crowd out the beneficial omega-3s like DHA.
Okay, and that crowding out is bad for brain power
Because the research is pretty clear now. Having enough EPA and DHA, those are the main omega-3s we're talking about, really boosts cognitive function.
like out.
Studies show improvements in executive functions planning, problem solving, also increases in gray matter volume, which is where processing happens, and better white matter integrity, the brain's communication highways.
Wow. So omega-3s are pretty crucial then. What about the plant-based omega-3 ALA? Like in flax seeds, is that good enough?
That's where it gets tricky. Your body can convert ALA into EPA and DHA, but it's not very efficient at it, especially for DHA.
Really?
Yeah, particularly in men, the conversion rate can be tiny, almost negligible for DHA sometimes, and it seems to get worse as we age.
So relying just on flax seeds might not cut it for brain health.
For many people, probably not enough to get optimal DHA levels in the brain. Women seem slightly better at converting, but honestly, getting EPA and DHA directly from sources like fatty fish is just much more reliable.
Okay, fish it is then. Good to know. Let's switch to another confusing topic, fats in general. Genius Foods kind of pushes back against the old fear of saturated fat.
hmm
What's the thinking there for brain health?
Well, the evidence linking saturated fat from whole foods, think grass-fed meat, maybe some butter, to bad health outcomes, especially for the brain, just isn't that strong when you really dig into it.
So the decades of avoid saturated fat might have been off.
It's looking that way, especially when it's part of a whole foods diet. The book definitely doesn't say restrict them if they're coming from good quality sources.
That's a big shift. So if saturated fats aren't the main enemy, what fats should we focus on?
Extra virgin olive oil gets a huge thumbs up. It's packed with monounsaturated fats and these amazing antioxidants like oleocanthal.
Oleocanthal. What's special about that?
It seems to help the brain clear out amyloid plaque, actually. Pretty powerful stuff.
Wow. Because olive oil is good. What about the bad fats? What should we actively avoid?
Definitely the industrially processed seed oils, canola, corn, soybeans, sunflower, that kind of stuff.
Even if they say organic or non-GMO.
Yeah, the processing itself is often the problem. They can be heat damaged, chemically altered, rancid. The book calls them frankenfats.
Yikes. Frankenfats. Okay, message received. Avoid those.
Pretty much. It's less about saturated versus unsaturated and more about whole, unprocessed versus industrialized and damaged.
And you mentioned trans fats too. There's a difference there.
Huge difference. The artificial manufactured trans fats, terrible. Avoid completely. But there are naturally occurring ones, like CLA and grass-fed dairy and meat, which might actually be beneficial.
Okay, the fat landscape is definitely more nuanced than I thought.
Yeah.
Let's move to sugar and carbs. The glycemic lie. What's the lie?
The lie, or maybe the oversimplification, is how we think about carbs and blood sugar. High glycemic foods, ones that digest fast, cause these big rapid spikes in blood sugar.
Which leads to an insulin surge, right?
Exactly. Your body pumps out insulin to deal with the sugar rush.
And the book talks about glycemic load being more useful than glycemic index. Why?
Right. Index tells you how fast a food raises blood sugar. Load considers the amount of carbs in a typical serving, so it gives you a more real picture of the actual blood sugar impact of eating that food.
Okay, that makes sense. But here's the shocker for me. Even healthy whole grains can spike blood sugar quite a bit.
That's a key point. Things like brown rice, whole wheat bread,
Yeah.
they can raise your blood sugar significantly, sometimes as much as or even more than table sugar.
Seriously, more than sugar.
Yeah, portion for portion sometimes. So while maybe slightly better than white bread, they're still contributing to that blood sugar roller coaster.
And why is that roller coaster so bad for our brains long term?
One big reason is something called glycation. Basically, excess sugar molecules stick to proteins in your body.
Like caramelizing them?
Kind of, yeah. It forms these harmful things called AGs, advanced glycation end products. And this process damages tissues everywhere, including the brain, and speeds up aging. Your ANC level, that diabetes marker, it's also seen as a marker of how fast you might be aging due to glycation.
So high blood sugar equals faster aging and brain damage.
Got it.
Should we avoid all foods high in AGs then?
Not necessarily. It's about balance. Like broiled salmon is high in AGs, but it's packed with amazing omega-3s. So you can't just look at AGEs in isolation. You need the whole picture.
Okay. The book also had this interesting evolutionary take on fruit.
Right. The idea is we evolved to crave sweet, ripe fruit because it was a great way to store fat for leaner times, like winter. Our color vision might have even evolved to spot ripe fruit.
But now we have super sweet fruit available 24/7.
Exactly. So our metabolism might be stuck in store fat for winter mode all year round, tricked by abundance.
And sugar messes with the brain directly too, not just blood sugar.
Yeah, research suggests it can mess with genes involved in neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to adapt and learn and generally impair cognitive function over time.
Plus, those hyperpalatable processed foods.
Oh, yeah. Designed to be addictive. High fat, high sugar, high salt combinations that just make us overeat. Bear traps of inflammation and obesity, as the book calls them. Best avoided.
Definitely. Okay, let's talk more about insulin. Its role goes way beyond blood sugar. Right?
Absolutely crucial point. When your cells are constantly bombarded with insulin because of high blood sugar, they can become resistant, like they stop listening.
Insulin resistance. Heard of it.
Right? And then your pancreas has to shout louder, produce even more insulin.
And having high insulin all the time is bad because
It's strongly linked to accelerated aging. The body is constantly in store energy mode, maybe prioritizing making new cells over repairing old ones. One researcher quoted says, every bowl of pasta tells your body to store fat and age faster.
Wow. Pasta ages you. That's
Hmm.
depressing. What's this biochemical liposuction thing?
Huh. It sounds fancy, but it just means letting your body burn its own fat stores. When
Yeah.
insulin levels are low, which happens when you limit easily digestible carbs, your body can finally access stored fat for fuel.
So cutting carbs, at least initially, can help reset that system.
Yes. Even a short period of very low-carb eating can significantly lower insulin production and improve insulin sensitivity quite quickly.
Okay, and how does insulin connect to sleep and brain cleaning? That was fascinating.
Yeah, the glymphatic system, your brain's waste clearance system, it works best during deep sleep.
The power wash.
Exactly. But high insulin levels seem to interfere with it. So eating right before bed raises insulin and might hinder that cleaning process.
So stop eating a few hours before bed.
That's the recommendation. 2 to 3 hours seems ideal to let insulin levels drop and give the glymphatic system a clear run while you sleep. Let the trash crew do its job properly.
Great practical tip. Okay, cholesterol, another area full of myths. Genius Foods says dietary cholesterol isn't the big bad wolf.
Pretty much, yeah. It's amazing how much the thinking has changed. The cholesterol you eat in food has very little impact on the cholesterol levels in your blood for most people.
So the FDA even removed it from the nutrients of concern list.
They did. Which basically means the decades-long fear of things like eggs was largely based on, well, shaky science.
Good news for egg lovers. So if eating cholesterol isn't the main problem, what makes blood cholesterol problematic?
Well, first, most of the cholesterol in your blood is made by your own body, mostly your liver. Your brain makes some too. Eat less, your liver makes more.
Okay.
The real issue is when the LDL particles, the bad cholesterol carriers, get damaged.
Damaged how?
Through oxidation, think rusting from being in the bloodstream too long, or glycation, that sugar sticking process we talked about.
And damaged LDL is bad because...
Because then the body's tissues can't recognize it properly for delivery, and the liver can't recycle it efficiently, so it hangs around, gets stuck, builds up in artery walls.
So you could have normal total cholesterol, but still be at risk if your LDL is damaged or the wrong type.
Exactly. Especially if you have lots of small, dense LDL particles, which are more prone to damage than the large, fluffy kind.
What about statins then? The book seemed a bit cautious about their widespread use.
It raises questions, particularly for primary prevention, using them in healthy people just because their cholesterol number is high, to prevent a first heart attack. The evidence is strongest for secondary prevention after someone's already had an event.
So many people taking them might not get a huge benefit, but could get side effects.
That's the concern raised. Plus, while statins lower LDL production by the liver, they don't necessarily fix the underlying damage or recycling problem and might even increase those risky, small, dense particles sometimes.
Definitely food for thought. So managing cholesterol quality through diet and lifestyle seems more fundamental. Okay, let's talk brain fuel, mitochondria and ketones.
Right, mitochondria are the power plants in your brain cells. And the book talks about this idea of a cellular energy crisis.
Even when we're eating plenty of calories.
Yeah, our cells can still be starved for usable energy. And things like oxidative stress, too many free radicals damage these mitochondria, which is linked to neurological problems.
How do ketones fit in from low-carb diets?
Ketones are an alternative fuel the brain can use, made from fat when carbs are scarce. This is really interesting because there's growing evidence suggesting Alzheimer's might be partly a metabolic problem, like type 3 diabetes, where the brain struggles to use glucose properly.
But it can still use ketones.
It seems so. Even in aging brains, or those with the ApoE4 risk gene, or even with Alzheimer's, the ability to use ketones for energy seems largely intact. It's a potential backup fuel source.
What about MCT oil or coconut oil? Do they help with ketones?
They contain fats that are more easily converted into ketones. There's anecdotal evidence, like the Dr. Mary Newport story, suggesting they might offer a brain energy boost, perhaps especially when first adapting to lower carbs. Worth considering, though more large studies are needed.
Okay, interesting. Let's shift to the gut-brain connection. Huge topic now.
Absolutely huge. Your gut microbiome, those trillions of bacteria, is like a forgotten organ. Its genetic power dwarfs our own genome.
And it affects immunity, nutrients, vitamins.
It's everything, and it talks directly to your brain
Whoa.
through the gut-brain axis. There's the vagus nerve, a direct line, plus all the chemicals these gut bacteria produce that get into your bloodstream and influence mood, cognition, behavior.
And the book suggests our super clean modern lives might actually be bad for our gut microbes.
It's a fascinating idea. Less exposure to diverse microbes might mean our immune system doesn't get trained properly. There's even some tentative research linking higher national hygiene levels with higher Alzheimer's rates. Needs more study, but interesting.
What about leaky gut? How does that affect the brain?
So the gut lining is meant to be a tight barrier. A protein called zonulin can loosen those junctions, make it leaky.
Letting stuff into the bloodstream that shouldn't be there.
Right. And the worry is that increased zonulin might also affect the blood-brain barrier, the brain's own protective shield. A leaky gut could lead to a leaky brain, which isn't good.
Can we do anything about zonulin?
Well, for some people, going gluten-free has been shown to reduce zonulin levels and improve gut barrier function. Might help protect the brain barrier, too.
And the future sounds exciting with probiotics, psychobiotic.
Totally. Using specific beneficial bacteria to influence mental health and brain function. We're just scratching the surface there.
So practically, how do we feed our good gut bugs for better brain health?
Focus on prebiotic fiber from vegetables, onions, garlic, asparagus, artichokes. Way better food for your microbes than just the insoluble fiber in most grains.
Okay, more veggies. What else?
Lots. Eat diverse fiber. Try fermented foods like kimchi, sauerkraut, maybe kombucha. Get polyphenols from things like olive oil, berries, colorful veg. Cut way back on sugar, especially fructose. Ditch processed foods and wheat. Go organic local if you can for more polyphenols, fewer pesticides. Avoid antibiotics unless essential. Maybe get a pet. And chew your food slowly.
Wow, that's a comprehensive list.
Yeah.
Okay, neurotransmitters, the brain's chemical messengers. Diet plays a big role here too.
Huge. Serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, acetylcholine, they run the show for mood, focus, memory, motivation. The author even shared how vitamin D helped his mood.
How does vitamin D connect?
It's involved in making serotonin. And speaking of serotonin, chronic inflammation can actually mess with its release.
So tackling inflammation helps serotonin work better.
It seems so,
Hmm.
which is where omega-3s come in again. They can help reduce inflammation and support serotonin function.
What about dopamine and norepinephrine for focus and stress?
Dopamine needs tyrosine, an amino acid from protein. Exercise boosts it too. Norepinephrine is hit hard by chronic stress. Maybe lay off the constant bad news cycle. And watch out for pesticides. They can interfere with acetylcholine systems needed for memory.
So quick tips to optimize them.
Okay. Choline from eggs for acetylcholine. Omega-3s, good vitamin D levels, sunlight, exercise for serotonin. Pyrosine-rich foods, and exercise for dopamine. Manage stress and get enough sleep for norepinephrine.
Sleep, right? Genius Foods calls it sacred sleep. It's that important.
Non-negotiable. A sleep-deprived brain is basically offline. Research shows even one bad night can lead to signs of neuronal injury.
And that's when the brain's cleaning system, the glymphatic system, really kicks in.
Exactly. During deep sleep, it's like a power wash, clearing out metabolic junk, including amyloid protein.
The stuff linked to Alzheimer's plaques.
Right. And poor sleep messes up this cleaning process, leading to more amyloid buildup. It's a direct link.
Okay, sold on sleep. How do we optimize it? Quick tips.
Bed for sleep and sex only. No alcohol near bedtime. Cut the blue light from screens at night. Keep the phone out of the bedroom. Dark room is key. Set a caffeine curfew. Eat more fiber omega-3s, fewer carbs overall. Stop eating maybe 2-3 hours before bed. Get morning sunlight.
That's a lot, but makes sense. And sleep affects hunger hormones too.
Oh, yeah. Bad sleep messes up ghrelin and leptin. Makes you hungrier, less satisfied. And leptin itself is involved in memory and cleaving amyloid beta.
And stress impacts sleep and brain cleaning too.
Chronic stress is bad news. It activates the brain's immune system in unhelpful ways and interferes with an enzyme, IDE, that normally helps break down both insulin and amyloid beta. Double whammy.
Wow. Okay, beyond diet and sleep, other lifestyle boosters.
Yes. Hormetic stressors, short challenges that make you stronger long-term.
Like exercise.
Exactly. Both aerobic for cardio health cell efficiency and anaerobic, like weights or HIIT. Both boost memory, brain cell growth via BDNF, and anaerobic stuff activates AMPK for better insulin sensitivity and mitochondrial health. Even sedentary folks with mild cognitive issues improved significantly after just 3 months of exercise.
So exercise is key. What about just taking antioxidant pills?
The book suggests it's usually better to stimulate your body's own antioxidant systems through diet and exercise rather than overloading with pills.
Makes sense. And sauna use.
Saunas hyperthermic therapy trigger heat shock proteins that protect brain cells. It's another hormetic stressor.
And polyphenols in plants.
Right. Compounds in things like olive oil, berries, dark chocolate, tea, they create mild stress that ramps up our own defenses, like glutathione production. Oleocanthal in olive oil helps clear plaque. Apigenin in parsley might boost new brain cell growth. Lots of
It
benefits.
really is a whole body, whole lifestyle approach.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so the book pulls this all together into the genius foods and a plan.
Yep. The genius foods are categories: healthy oils, EVOO, avocado, quality protein, grass-fed, wild fish, nut seeds, loads of veggies, some low-sugar roots, low-sugar fruits like berries.
And the plan itself?
It starts with a cleanup week, ditching processed foods, grains, seed oils, added sugar. Then a 2-week ultra-low-carb phase to reset metabolism, focusing on fibrous veg and low-fructose fruit.
Reset and become fat adapted.
Kind of, yeah. Then carbs are strategically added back in to replenish glycogen, support hormones like leptin, and maintain flexibility.
This has been incredibly rich. So many connections between diet, lifestyle, and how our brains work.
Absolutely, and it's vital for you listening to remember, as the book stresses, the science is always evolving. We're learning more all the time.
So keep learning, keep questioning.
Exactly. Be curious. Seek out good information, but always feel empowered to question things, even what we've discussed today. Use this as a starting point for your own exploration.
So here's a final thought for you to chew on. Just how much are our everyday habits, the food we grab, how much we move, how we sleep, shaping our brains, maybe in ways we don't even realize?
And could making even small, consistent changes based on these kinds of evolutionary principles lead to really significant long-term gains in how sharp you feel, your mood, your overall well-being?
Think about which ideas resonated most with you. What questions do you still have? That's your next step on the path to optimizing your own amazing brain.